This is considered the best and worst of Nolan. What I mean by that is everything great about Nolan: the music, the concept, the effects, the pacing, the non-linear storytelling, and the spectacle is present, and it really elevates the film. But on the other hand, all the Nolan exposition, clunky dialogue, one-dimensional characters, and sound mixing are ever so present. Considering all that, I still enjoyed it. But looking at it a little closer, there are many positive aspects of the film that truly outweighs the negative. There are a lot of videos that go in depth with everything that's wrong with the film, so I'll just briefly go over it. And there are many videos on YouTube that are claiming that this is an underrated masterpiece. To some degree, I agree, but my aim is to just share my perspective on this film. If we just look at the plot of the film, it's actually pretty good. If we look at the film as a whole, it's alright. But I think if we focus on the bad, then we sort of blind ourselves from the actual good aspects of the film. I think there are a lot of aspects that truly just makes it worth the experience of the film. And before I get into it, I just want to remind you guys that this is my opinion. I'm not stating facts, and I'm really not trying to change your mind, but I just want to share my opinions and perspective on it. Personally, I don't think that this film is in the same caliber of Inception, Interstellar, and Dark Knight, but I was still satisfied with the film and how it turned out and what was given to us, and I really enjoyed it. So if you guys have already seen it, maybe once or twice, maybe even 3 times, I hope that you guys are able to maybe enjoy it if you decide to watch it again. And if you haven't seen it, I hope that you guys actually enjoy it. And I hope you guys are able to look past all the negative aspects that everybody addresses, which shouldn't be a deal breaker, at least for me. Armed with one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. Firstly, I'd like to address the problems a lot of people had. To some degree, I can agree that it gets so repetitive, but sometimes the exposition is the emotion that we will never get. What I mean by that is, at the end of the film, the friendship of the protagonist and Neil is being explained to us. It never felt like plain exposition. I agree that it was kinda lazy, but there was some weight to it. There was a reason behind it. It didn't feel like the love speech from Interstellar, but more of the ending of Interstellar when Cooper finally gets back to Murph. A lot of people say that instead of showing, Christopher Nolan has been telling us about these characters. I completely agree that there wasn't a moment in the film where I cared about Kat. Every time Sator and Kat were on screen, I was a little annoyed and just wanted to see Neil and the protagonist. In my first viewing, I missed so many important lines, but I was quite satisfied. In my second viewing, I went in with my friends, and every time it was super loud, I was uncomfortable for them and was scared that they disliked the movie for it, I guess. Personally, I really liked the volume. Then I watched the film for a third time and found myself turning the volume up and down during certain scenes to hear what they were saying, and so it wasn't too loud for my family. And for the fourth time, I finally understood everything that was happening. I just accepted the fact that some scenes were too loud and it was just jarring sometimes, and like 2 different parts of the stereo was being used. But eventually I made a discovery that this sound mixing was intentional, and I'm not saying that it's bad or good, but what I'm saying is that this was what he wanted. If a lot of people are saying and agreeing to one particular idea, and maybe this time the artist is wrong, so I get both sides. But that doesn't stop me from watching the film and just enjoying it. Personally, I do agree that watching this on the theater or on the TV is kind of a hassle. But when I watch it on the side or decide to go back to it and I watch it on my PC with headphones on, I can actually hear it well. When I play this film in the background when I work, I never adjusted the volume. I heard all the dialogue and the action scenes were not so loud at all. The mix was perfect. So if you ever have the chance, try it out and let me know, unless I'm tripping. When I walked out of the movie theater, I was genuinely happy with the images that I saw. Even though everyone around me just said the cinematography was nothing special at all, I think Hoyt Van Hoytma did a very fine job. To me, the IMAX images really brought life to the set pieces they pulled off. When the aspect ratio changes, you know big things are about to happen. I really think that Hoyt Van Hoytma finally got the hang of working with Christopher Nolan, and it's looking really good. I will admit, this is one of Christopher Nolan's weaker stories. The story of Tenet throws you into the beginning, middle, and end. The story left me wanting more, even though I was moderately satisfied with it. I had some time to speculate on things and really discuss with others about what happened. The story itself is a closed loop, but it did open up bigger loops that left questions and leaves a much bigger story. To me, it never had the full satisfaction and the bittersweet ending and the melancholy feeling that Inception left behind. I'm well aware that I talked about this in the negative, but you gotta hear me out. This has the worst and best characters of Nolan. When the protagonist and Neil are on screen, it's just so electric. The chemistry between Rob and John David, it's so evident that I can clearly see them having fun with everything that they're doing in this film. Some people say that Nolan's films lack character, but personally, I have to disagree because these two are pretty interesting characters. The protagonist is a guy who, as a spy, has to get things done efficiently and willing to do what needs to be done. He is also in a predicament of caring for others. Although some can argue that he isn't consistent, like when he says he would take a woman as a hostage and then takes care of Kat, I think it adds a second dimension to his character. Neil, on the other hand, is just so mysterious and cool. He's a very capable man who is willing to help his friend, even if it means losing everything. But sometimes he seems like a reckless person who only means it for the best. John David holds his own in this film. I started liking him in his previous films, but this was the film that truly made me appreciate him. Robert is always so interesting on screen, and this has to be one of his best performances he's ever done. With the small aspects done, this is what I truly like. I can never stop talking about this film because this is the one Nolan film that I finally got to watch in the theaters, and it was one heck of a ride. The scale of the film really defined it, and it was the best film of 2020 for me. Again, a lot of people hate this film, but I genuinely think this film will age very well later on in the years. I remember watching a movie in the theaters in the year of 2019, being given the Tenet prologue, and I was completely surprised. At first I was thinking, what is this trash? Then I saw John David and I knew. I was just paying attention to everything in the prologue, and it was just so amazing. Then I remember walking to the movie theater, and instead of talking about the films that my friends and I just saw, we instead started talking about the Tenet prologue. And that night, the first Tenet trailer came out, and everything was just so hyped. Then when the film was about to release, I entered this Tenet film challenge, and I studied the opening of the film and really broke it down and based the film on inversion itself. The plot is pretty amazing actually. The way everything occurred fit perfectly, with a big reveal at the end. It goes to show that each scene had so many purposes and double meanings. Like I mentioned before, it was a small loop within so many bigger loops around it. The plot structure is so solid that it never felt boring or pointless. From the opening to the inciting incident, to the first set pieces, to the midpoint where everything changed, literally, all the way to the end. Why everything was happening made sense in the context of the film. Inversion has got to be one of the more creative concepts I've seen recently. Of course, plenty of other films have done it already, but taking a story and fully making it about this was very interesting. The reason why I love this film is because it's an entire film that has its own rules and logics, and it unfolds in front of you. The set pieces of this film are so well done, from the opera house to the Freeport heist to the truck in place that seeps right into the car chase and the red and blue room, then goes back to each event was so genius. The spectacle was just beautiful. I found myself wanting to create images that has the same scale as the events in this film, like crashing a plane, driving trucks into other trucks on a highway, having a shootout in the middle of an opera house filled with people, to the inverted recovery of the plane crash, to reversing a car crash, to driving backwards. All the set pieces in this film are just so beautiful. This literally takes Nolan's non-linear storytelling to the next level. Seeing this entire film in the protagonist's perspective made the most sense, at least in the first viewing, since it was a very subjective point of view. Then when taking into account everybody else's point of view, it starts to unravel how intricate it really is and how much thought Christopher Nolan has put into it. From an objective point of view, it's really hard to break down, especially when certain perspectives like satyrs are played out. Although it might be hard to understand for others, and it was for me as well, it was really fun to see breakdowns and to really study it and take it apart to truly understand where everyone was at certain times. I'm not saying it's genius, and I'm not trying to be pretentious. What I'm saying is that it's just so much fun to discover so many new things every time I watch it and break down videos on YouTube, and to know that Christopher Nolan really took his time to get everything down, so it at least makes sense within the movie. This is one fast film. I never felt the time passing because it is paced so well. I can admit that it does slow down when Kat is on screen, especially the dinner scene and the yacht scene, but other than those, this film truly is a ride. Some people say it's way too fast, and I can agree to it, but for the length, I really think it's justified. The two scenes that stood out to me regarding the pacing was the Freeport heist plan and Priya's promise. With the intercutting, the planning, the voiceovers, and the music cue, it was just so well executed and so well edited. I believe that it was the smoothest parts of the film. Learning that this film has less visual effects shots than most romantic comedies makes me really happy. As Jennifer Lame said, Tenet has under 300 visual effects shots. It goes to show that the events in the film are actually authentic. When I see the inverted world, I just ask myself, how did they do that? I'm just truly amazed at how they were able to pull off so many shots practically. The visual effects are a prime example of how to do it because it wasn't so obvious which ones were and which ones were not. When I found out that this film was the first film that the trio, Wally Pfister, Hans Zimmer, and Christopher Nolan, finally disbanded, I was actually sad because I wanted this to be the next Inception. Although I trusted Hoyt van Hoytma since his first work in The Fighter, Her, Ad Astra, and most notably Interstellar and Dunkirk because he was already with Nolan since 2014, it was Ludwig Göransson that was the new guy, and I don't blame him because he had big shoes to fill, and I only heard about him from Mandalorian. And I only found out he was part of the project when I watched the prologue, so I felt like it was going to be a copy of Hans Zimmer. And then the third trailer dropped, which featured the plan, and I was so confused because never have I ever thought that I would ever hear Travis Scott say, "Skirt, skirt, invert," in a Christopher Nolan film. But then I listened to the teaser music and I knew something was there. The beat of the plan kept me listening, and only the man behind the score is responsible. But once I watched the film, I was completely blown away at all the pieces. Rainy Night in Talon, Windmills, Meeting Neil, Freeport, 747, Foils, Truck in Place, Inversion, Turnstile, The Algorithm, Posterity, and The Plan are all the music I listen to now. I was completely in awe when it dropped on YouTube and Spotify. I could imagine everything happening when listening to them. Even just the teaser music was great. This film opened up so many doors to all the beautiful music Ludwig has created. Anyway, the story was pretty good. It really is a solid film and I loved it. I really get all the downside everyone is talking about, but it never made the film fail for me. Personally, when I watched this film the first time around, I connected to the protagonist because I was asking so many questions and I truly understood where he was coming from and his motivations. But the second viewing, I connected to Neil more because I already knew everything that was happening, but it was about letting it play out and enjoying what was going on. For me, it was more than just inversion. It was about the choices you make and your responsibilities for them. If you can reverse them to make better choices, would you? Or should you? It also tapped into the subject of learning by experience and going through what you need to go through to actually learn, instead of just learning what not to do because you're told. It's not as compelling as Inception, but it ventured into a different path that I really liked. Does it have a compelling story? Sort of. Is it memorable? Oh, 100%. Is it a good film? Totally. At the end of the day, I really like this film. I'm not saying it's something I would watch once every 3 months, but more like every week. Is it a good Christopher Nolan story? Yes, I have to admit, it is one of his best. At least to me, it is.